What are you moving through so fast right now that you will only understand what you missed when something finally makes you stop? Hugh. Hugh had been a mountain guide for 38 years. He guided travelers across the high passes of the Drum Range, merchants, officials, messengers, anyone who needed to cross from the east side to the west side safely. He was the fastest guide on the mountain. His clients crossed in 4 days, what other guides needed 6 days to manage. He was proud of the 4 days. He had crossed the Drum High Pass so many times, he had stopped counting somewhere around 400. He knew every stretch by the feel of it under his boots. He knew where the ice lingered in the mornings, where the path narrowed to single file, where the exposed ridge needed careful footing. He did not need to look at the mountain anymore. He looked at where he was going and he moved. In his 38th year, a plant researcher from the Eastern University hired him for a crossing. She brought a satchel, a notebook, and a flat wooden case for pressing plant specimens. She needed to reach scholars on the west side. She fell behind on the first morning. The mountain. She was crouched beside the path, looking at something on a flat boulder. She was not resting. She was drawing in her notebook. It was lichen, a thin grey-green crust on the rock face. She explained it without being asked. This type of lichen only grows above a certain height, where the air is exactly cold and damp enough. Where you see it, you are standing at the precise line where the mountain's whole climate changes. It acts as a marker. A line drawn in the air that you cannot see any other way. Hugh had seen that grey-green crust on boulders his whole life. He had never thought about what it meant. Hugh. We need to keep moving, he said. We lose the light on the upper section if we are not past it by noon. He kept them to pace. An hour behind by noon. He ate at the high shelter and said little. The second morning she stopped again. This time she pointed to a crack in the rock face about 3 feet off the trail to the right. The mountain. Inside the crack was a plant. Small yellow flowers on thin stems, pressed into the narrow dark space. It bloomed for 4 days every year. Only in early autumn, only in cracks exactly this size on north-facing rock. Most people never saw it because you would have to stop walking and look sideways at a wall you had already passed 100 times. Hugh had walked past this exact spot on his last 40 crossings. He looked at the flowers and said nothing. Hugh. That evening they were an hour behind his usual schedule. Hugh set a faster pace the following morning. But she stopped again on the 3rd day. And again she showed him something. The mountain. A pattern of moss on the ground that followed the line of an underground stream, invisible until you knew that this particular moss only grows above moving water below the surface. The color of it was the map of what was underneath. Further along, a section of the path where the stones were arranged differently from the ground around them. Laid by hand, she said, probably hundreds of years old, built to channel rain off the trail sideways so it stayed passable in wet weather. Stone drainage work still doing its job centuries after the people who built it were gone. Hugh had walked across that hand-laid section 400 times. He had thought it was just how the ground was. Hugh. They crossed in 6 days. He said goodbye to his clients on the west side and walked back alone. He crossed in 4 days as usual. But he walked differently than he had before. He stopped at the crack in the rock face. The yellow flowers were still there. He stood and looked at them for a while. He had guided 200 clients past this spot and said nothing about it because he had not known it was there. He crouched down at the section of hand-laid stones and looked at how they were fitted together. The work was careful. Someone had thought hard about the angle to send the water sideways off the path. They had done it with just the stones the mountain gave them, and it had held for longer than anyone alive could remember. The mountain. The lichen was on the boulder at the same altitude as always. The moss followed the same underground water it always had. The hand-laid stones had been draining the path for centuries before Hugh was born and would keep draining it long after. These things had been there every time he crossed. Every single one of the 400 times. Hugh. He started carrying a notebook. The following season he offered 2 crossings, his 4-day fast route, and a new 6-day slow crossing. He guided the slow ones himself. The same path, the same mountain, but they stopped when there was something worth stopping for. The 6-day clients came back and told people. Within 2 seasons, half his bookings were the slow route. He charged the same for both. He still crossed in 4 days, when someone needed 4 days. But he no longer thought of the 4-day crossing as the better one. He had learned that there were 2 mountains on the same path. He had spent 38 years showing clients one of them, the mountain of distance and time. The other mountain, the one you could only see if you stopped and looked sideways, had been there all along. Moving quickly through something means you arrive, but it does not mean you were truly there. The things that wait one step off the path are often the most remarkable things on the whole journey. Slowing down is not falling behind, it is how we finally see what we have been walking through all along. For more such interesting videos, please like, share, and subscribe to Zen Magma Wisdom Nest YouTube channel.